A leadership's position should be, I am the conduit to your success.
Ooh, nice.
Show me what you need, and I will provide it. And people don't really know how success feels because they don't get that kind of appreciation for the work that they do. I mean, I was interested in my success when I was young. It was, like any other business owner, how much can I make? How much can I get? What's my deal? What am I going to get out of this? I'm putting a lot of time and energy and money in here. What am I getting? And the thing that I learned was, the more that I stopped focusing on what am I getting and start focusing on what are they getting, I get more. I get more than I ever imagined I would get. I think a disconnected AI program is not any better. Actually, it's probably worse than a disconnected employee. Are the people understanding what you're doing, or are they just sitting in their desks waiting to be fired? People change and improve for their reasons. They don't improve for my reasons. They don't improve because I pass out a new handbook on improvement. They only do it because they feel as if this is worthy of my time. Get all those roadblocks out of the way, and that's all we have to do. We hire good people, we train them effectively, and then get the roadblocks out of their way. And you will be amazed how that changes the dynamic of the relationship between leadership and the organization.
John, in your latest LinkedIn post, you mentioned how teams that you would often work with would seem productive, but the teams would be disconnected. And it reminded me of these statistics that I've seen recently, that as of 2024, only 21% of employees worldwide felt engaged at work. And in the West, where we are...
It's not funny. Yeah. I'm just agreeing with you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then
21%.
21%. And I think here at the West, like US, UK kind of thing, was about only 10% actively engaged. That's 9 in 10 people being apathetic, not finding any fulfillment or meaning in their jobs. And some of them even being hostile in the workplace.
Right.
What is going on? Why are people so unhappy with the jobs?
Terrible leaders. I mean, it's not that simple, but it's close. The issue is that leadership has always assumed that what it just needed to do is explain what the workers needed to do, and then they would go do it. And these days, people want to know why. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They want to know how is what I'm doing affecting the good of the organization. How is my piece fit into the whole? People want to know more than just what to do. They want to know why they need to do it. They want to know a clear way how to do it. And if they don't get that kind of direction, they get almost immediately disconnected, because it's, if you don't care, why should I care? So it's an example set by leadership that really comes back to bite the whole organization, because leadership is not taking enough time. Because the way I teach leadership, which is to connect and engage with the workers, that takes a lot more time and effort than just handing them a handbook and saying, get to work, kind of thing. That's pretty easy. But understanding what their needs are, understanding what their motivations are, each person has a little different tweak. Each gender has a different issue. Each nationality has a different issue. I worked with, and again, this is not something I've been writing about this since the 80s. So this has been going on a very long time, and it's getting worse because workers' attention spans are getting shorter. Plus, there's been a huge disconnect because of COVID. I was just talking, I'm doing a program right now for kids, well, not kids, but families who are struggling with somebody in the family who's dealing with addiction. And so the plan is how do we reunite the family and the addicts and the alcoholics together to build the trust back, which we use a version of the Daily Six to do that. And I was talking to the head counselor, and he said, since COVID, the difference between the way these people come into this session and the way they used to come into this session is so different. And it's always 2 hours. The first hour is the session that we go through, and the second hour is the people just sort of having an opportunity to talk to each other, talk to
Hmm.
themselves, figure out what's working, what's not working, just sort of a relaxed, engaged time frame. He said before COVID, they would sit and talk to each other and laugh and engage. Since COVID, they all put on their headphones and pick up their phones and play
Wow.
games or something like that. So this is working on making my family healthier, not making my company healthier. And I can't get engagement at that level. So we've had to tweak the program so that it directs towards more engagement in times where they're not being set up with clear actions. How do you
Mm.
stay engaged the rest of the day? And with work, it's even worse because there isn't that kind of connection of a family association. You want to reconnect with your family. You're looking for the leader to build uh, some sort of a sense of community, and community is a commonality of focus. Okay. And so what you need to do is explain to the people who are working with you why what you're doing is important and how each of their contributions contributes to the success of the whole. And as you do that, you'll begin to see that
Right.
engagement begins to go up. And what you do then is you begin to reinforce the fact now we're on the right. This is really getting better. Okay, this is good. Versus if you ask most employees, how do you do your annual reviews and for performance, and they'll say that that's the only time they ever sat down with their boss and had them explain how they're doing, how well they're doing, how poorly they're doing, which to me is way too late. If the
Mm.
person's not doing well, you're way too late. And if they are doing well and you've been ignoring them, more than likely, they're getting ready to go work somewhere else because they want to work somewhere else where somebody notices them and appreciates them. So my whole philosophy is you get this cycle of success started, and then it begins to self-perpetuate. You
Mhm.
just need to get people realizing they're important. I'm not as important. You're important. And this is how it works. And this is how I will help you find a path to success, not how I will boss you around all week and make you feel less than. This isn't a leadership means more
Mhm.
encouraging, more nurturing, and less dictatorial.
Yeah, well said. And that is what also gives this this feeling of shared contribution also gives people a sense of belonging,
Yes.
which many workplaces lack. For me as a restaurant manager is one of the most important things. If the person doesn't feel that they're
Hmm.
meaningfully contributing and then just clocking in and out for the salary, it's not gonna go work. It's not
Right.
gonna work. They're not gonna be happy. It's not gonna
Right.
serve the company. It's not gonna serve them working here. So why are we even doing this? So I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's. I mean, if you look at something like a restaurant, and I have a number of friends who have owned restaurants, multiple location restaurants, and it's such a. I mean, not everybody is working in the front. A lot of people work in the back too, but
Hmm.
the preparation in the back has to coordinate with the presentation in the front. If the meal is not set up on the plate correctly and the gravy is dripping over the edge or whatever it might be, and the wait staff doesn't care, they'll just drop the plate in front of the client or in front of the guests and move on. Um, but when people realize that how important they are in the presentation and how important they are in the preparation, all of a sudden it's just a little teeny bit of pride that we need to install in people that they've never had this sense of success before. It's if all of a sudden you start getting the guests are smiling or your coworkers are smiling, and it's really it's more dramatic in a place like a restaurant because you're physically seeing the clients right there in front of you, and you can read how well you're doing almost immediately. In an organization, many times you don't ever see the client that benefits from your reports or your gathering of data or however it is your presentation for the management's direction for the next quarter. And so making sure that they understand that a level of emotional engagement is critical to um, to making a difference between you and your competitors. I mean, like you just said, I remember the exact statistics, but it was about 80% is disconnected and 20% is moderately
Crazy.
connected. And there's a good of the 80%, there's probably 20% of those people who are actively working to be disengaged. So
Mm-hmm.
they show up negative.
Yes.
They don't want things to be successful, or they've tried and they've finally given up because they've tried so many times they don't care anymore. And so that's not the kind of person you want in an organization. It's the kind of person you probably would have wanted in your organization had you taken the time to teach them and encourage them and develop them. But people show up with much more need now, much more need to be feeling engaged and included. And I had leaders tell me 20 years ago, this sounds like parenting. Isn't this like parenting? And I was like, well, no, not really, but it is trying to find a commonality. It is trying to build a community. It is trying to create a sense of connection, not just with you, but with each other, because they have to work together as a team, and each member of the team can contribute something that makes everybody more successful.
Yes.
And when you can do that, I mean, it's dramatically different when you can take that 20% that you were talking about before and get them to sort of help the other 80% come along, show them what's working here and why it's valuable. People want to be successful. That's one of the lines
Of course.
in my keynotes. I mean, everybody would rather knock it for a six than not hit a home run than not throw, score a goal than not. Everybody would prefer to do the successful thing than the failure thing. So putting people on a pathway to that success rather than feeling as if they're trying to overcome roadblocks that leadership is putting up, which is how most people feel. They're trying to work around roadblocks, that
Exactly.
leadership is putting up. And our job as leaders is to get all those roadblocks out of the way. And that's all we have to do. We hire good people, we train them effectively, and then get the roadblocks out of their way. And you will be amazed how that changes the dynamic of the relationship between leadership and the organization.
You mentioned roadblocks. I have another statistic for you. About as of 2025, this year, 66% of people feel that they are burnt out at work. Do you think the expectation from the majority of employers is just too damn high for the amount of compensation that they give people, so that people just feel burned out for the work/compensation they do?
Well, I don't know that paying somebody more would minimize their burnout. I mean,
That's true.
it might
Yes.
make them happier with their burnout,
It could
but
be
not
intrinsic compensation as well.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's probably where I feel certainly one of the things I learned as an employer, and I was an employer for probably more years than I've been a consultant. So um, I understood that you have to pay people uh, a fair wage within the market that you're in. If you're running a restaurant, the chefs have to make the right amount of money that other chefs are making. Otherwise, they'll just go work somewhere else. It doesn't matter how happy-go-lucky and everything is. It matters that they're being compensated fairly for the work that they do. And once you have everybody compensated fairly for the work that they do, then it's a matter of how well are you developing the culture of the organization? Do you give people an opportunity to take a break and recharge? Do the people even know how to take a break and recharge? Um, I did a lot of work in the Middle East between 2010 and 2020. And one of the hospitals I worked in was tremendously stressed out with multiple national, different countries, people from all over the place, different levels of education, and burnout was a big issue in healthcare. And what we did was we taught them how to take a 1 to 2 minute break. That's it, just a 1 to 2 minute break.
Mm-hmm.
How to sort of set their mind in a new direction, let go of the morning, let go of the previous hour, reset your mind and your commitments, and then move forward in a new and recharged way. And it made all this hospital is still winning awards today. I mean, every time I turn around, there's another, best in the Middle East kind of thing, of the culture, or the way in which the retention of nurses, or the happiness of physicians. But uh, if you don't have a good connection or understanding with your people, you're not going to know or notice that this is happening. I mean, people aren't going to run up and go, "Oh my God, I think I'm burning out." I mean, they're just going to finally, pass out on the floor, and you have to drag them out of the office and put them in the hospital, because they don't want to admit that they can't handle the work. And you, as an employer, probably would prefer not to be thinking that you're overstressing your people. So basically, what they do in most cases is ignore it. So what we have to do is, and again, this is why if you focus on the people in an organization, the successes that you want for the organization will happen. If you focus on the
Right.
organization, then the people will tend to not be able to deliver it because they're not your focus. If the people are your focus, the organization will deliver what it's want. If you focus on the organization's needs, then the people will not be able to do it, because that's your focus needs to be on the people. People first, then strategic planning, then organizational development. That, it's when people, I got called in to do some strategic planning before for a client, and it was great, except for the people didn't care. This is what you were talking about before. They could care less whether the company succeeded or not. They just wanted a paycheck, and they wanted
Exactly.
to go home because the company was a pain in the butt. So what they do for the next 5 years, they didn't care. They didn't care at all. So the first thing we had to do was find a way to get them to care, find a way to create a connection between leadership and the workers, so that they could begin to see a path forward in a sense of connection and community that simply didn't exist before.
Hmm.
And that was hard. It took time. With the first organization I worked with that was negative, it took almost a year of working with them, at least for a week, a month, to work on one aspect of engagement and connection or another, communication, building trust, how to make sure that the communication that you're exhibiting is clear, not in your mind but in their mind,
Hmm.
because people change and improve for their reasons. They don't improve for my reasons. They don't
Exactly.
improve because I pass out a new handbook on improvement. They only do it because they feel as if this is worthy of my time. And if they feel it's worthy of my time, that usually comes because they have connected with good leadership, good team members, and an organization that feels like they're lifting them up rather than chewing them up, if you if you will.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And employers don't understand this, or many don't, that if they focus on short-term gains, such
Mm,
as cut cost on training, don't care so much about, about the people, care only about the income that is going to come in this week, this month, they don't realize that it's going to cost them more over the long term, either because they're going to have to hire consultants to help them out, or because they're going to lose billions, millions, or whatever in
right,
productivity.
right.
And now bring in technology as well, which also has affected in many ways. Actually, I want to know, in your opinion, how has technology affected work satisfaction? And we can talk both
Yeah.
about the social aspect of it, such as being apathetic because you consume social media all day and you become a zombie, or maybe just using AI tools, whichever way you want to go there.
Well, I don't know. To me, social media is kind of a big ado about very little. I mean, I post all the time. I get
Hmm.
2,000 reactions a week on my posts and I don't know that it really changes anybody's minds or perspectives. The only time that happens is if somebody calls and we start talking one on one. So the relationship is smaller and tighter and more focused, and then change becomes possible. Um, so social media, I don't know. It can be more distracting than it is effective, I think, depending on how much you're trying to stay engaged with it. AI is a whole different issue. I did a talk with a German consultant 6 or 8 months ago about AI, and every question he had to do with, well, how do you think AI is going to improve the productivity of this? And I kept coming back to exactly what I've been saying to you. Are the people understanding what you're doing, or are they just sitting in their desks waiting to be fired? If they realize that I'm building a partnership between you and AI, or are they thinking I'm bringing AI in here, and of course if you don't get it explained to you, your next thought is, and I'm going out the door. All the humans are going out the door, and AI is coming in, because the way in which management has worked for so many years is when new techniques come in, it usually means something negative is happening to the workers. It's
Hmm.
not like this is going to be great. We're all going to benefit. All the boats are going to rise together. They don't think that. They think that he's going to bring this in. It's going to cut our time, or we're going to type out synopsis or outlines of things, turn it over to AI, and they'll crank out all the details. And the reality is that if if you have disconnected, disconcerted people, they will not give you the kind of material that AI could work with. They're going to give
Mm.
you disconnected, convoluted material that then AI is going to make fancier and longer and give you studies and all sorts of things that completely misses the target. So again, you know, this is this is just another step in technology, and technology has advanced over the years. I mean, there used to be a time where we picked all the seeds out of cotton by hand, took a cotton ball and picked all the little seeds out of it, put it over here, and it took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every day to do that. And then Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, and you throw the cotton balls in the top, you crank the crank, and out comes all the cotton, and all the seeds come out on the other side. And that's not that much different. But it's then, okay, well, now what do we do with all the workers that were doing this before? And
Mm.
so for
Yeah.
me, what you can do is you take that time that you have created, and you do exactly what you were talking about earlier that's not being done, which is focus more on, well, then what do we do in 3 years as we move forward with this AI program. And you can take some of the people who are working and are going to be doing less because of AI. You can have them working more on the future. How are we going to be ready for the future when it gets here? What kind of challenges can we do? I mean, most times people are reacting negatively to AI, and they can react positively if they're given a positive connection to the AI program. What other programs could we use? What other ways could we make the place more efficient and effective in connecting with our market? Um, I don't really know how. You were talking about a restaurant before. I don't know how you're going to get AIs cooking or serving. Um,
You
so
won't.
that's what I mean.
I hope not.
I hope not too. So I don't know that. I think there are some industries where it's more prevalent, and the problem is that disconnected statistic that you gave me at the beginning. Those are the companies that think AI is the solution, and AI is even more disconnected from you emotionally, and with your spirit and emotion. It's much more disconnected. You have to work much harder with an AI program to write enough prompts to get them to think like a human. I mean, the prompts, I mean, most people go, well, write me a paper on the statistical advantage of our product in our market. And, give me
Use it.
2,000
Yeah.
words on that. AI just spit it right out for you. But is it really effective, or is it just 2,000 words? And so I think a disconnected AI program is not any better. Actually, it's probably worse than a disconnected employee. Disconnected is disconnected. And so, with an employee, you can work on building the connection in the community much more effectively than you can with AI. And again, most people want to go right to the AI program rather than spending, say, 6 months to a year on writing prompts. How do you write prompts to give you the correct responses that you're looking for? Because you can get the information out of AI, but most times people don't want to take the time it takes, just like they don't want to take the time it takes to teach somebody effectively how to run a department or engage their employees. It takes lots of extra work, and it's not just hiring a person, and it's just not buying an AI program. They both take refinement, development, and much more commitment. And you were talking about short-term thinking, and AI is not short-term solution. It's a long-term solution, but it takes a long time to become efficient with that solution. Right now you could probably take the same amount of effort, put it into the people that you have working with you, and change the entire dynamic of the way which people are working. They'll become much more engaged, much more positive, much more productive. And when that happens, I call that a cycle of success. I mean, people don't really know how success feels because they don't get that kind of appreciation for the work that they do. And when you get people understanding what success feels like, I mean, it's like I said earlier, we'd much rather hit a home run or score a goal. What does that feel like? How do you experience that kind of success? And if you can begin to get people to feel like that at work, when they accomplish something and they start feeling successful about what they're doing, they'll want to come back and do that again and again and again and again. As you move towards an AI program, much highly productive people will want to work with anything and help it become more successful because that's their mindset. But if their mindset is, I need to protect myself, the thing I said to the German guy is, I said, the first thing I would do is I would be very worried about the fact that, I mean, if you think of AI as a person walking down the street, just imagine that. Your current employees are going to be sticking their feet out into the street to try and trip the AI and make it look stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not there to make it look, they don't want to make it look good because they see that as, I'm going to lose my job.
That's right.
So you have to change that mindset so that they're supportive of these directions. And that, again, remember the first two words I gave you was bad leadership. That goes back to changing the leadership. In the US here, I mean, the leadership here right now is so bitter and petty and short-term thinking that that it's, and sadly, businesses tend to model what leadership looks like. And so if this is what leadership looks like, businesses will tend to follow that model. And in the short term, I mean, if you cut, like you said, cut training, cut advertising, cut all these things, all of a sudden you're making a ton of money,
And
but
it's sweet, yeah.
but it's for short term. Check with me next year when you've done no advertising and no promoting and no nothing, and you don't have any of these things, and you have disconnected employees and an AI program, and you'll be making lots of money, but you'll have no way to go, and the money will be dramatically short term. I mean, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, and all of a sudden it'll be, well, we're not getting any more market share, and now our expenses are down, but our sales have dropped down, and now we have no way to bring them back up because we have no marketing and we have no advertising. And training is one of the other things that goes away very quickly. I see that all the time. It's like, well, our sales are down, so we're not going to do any more training. We're not going to do any more training or advertising. I'm like,
that's suicide. That's
yeah,
just,
no,
that's just suicide.
I agree. I agree.
No, praise, man, praise, because I think a big factor is that in the West, at least, we have become so outcome oriented. We want the result, but we forget that also work is about the process, is about people coming together. And I understand that from an employer side, because you are there to make money, and you can make more money if you focus on the outcome. But if you are an employee and you just have a salary, I also see a lot of people using AI there to just sneak through work. So people use ChatGPT not only to do the menial task, but because since they find their job uninteresting, and what matters only is the outcome, they're gonna cheat, use AI, give them the outcome, give the outcome to the boss, and then continue scrolling on Instagram because we're so focused on the outcome. And if you don't have that leader, as you just said, to inspire people to want to work and come together, to make the process of working fun and fulfilling and engaging, again, all we care about is you give me my salary, you're gonna
Right.
make your millions now.
Right.
It's just
That's right.
outcome, outcome, outcome. Which
Right.
is, I think, is a societal problem as much as it is a work problem.
I absolutely agree. And certainly the West is a great example of how short-term thinking can screw many situations up. Um, the idea that the exchange of time for money, it it goes back thousands of years. Time for money. I'll give you time. Give me money. That's a dynamic that really is way past its prime. It needs to be completely changed. It's not time for money. It's time for a, a positive life experience, which includes money. But it's not limited to money. I wrote an article about this before, and it was if all you're doing is exchanging time for money, then money is the deciding factor on whether or not I keep working here. So somebody walks in and says, I will give you 20% more money. I'm gone. Why would I stay? And the thing you have to think in the next level down thinking is those offers are only going to come to the good workers. The best workers are going to get cherry picked. All right. So what's going to happen is all of your good workers are going to get offers and they're going to leave. And what does that leave you with? It leaves you with a company full of people who cannot find other offers of work. Okay. So you have a whole company full of poor producing. That's the whole company full of the 80% you were talking about at the beginning. The whole company of negative thinking, just throw out AI over here so I can go back over here and work on Instagram. Those people will be filled, your company will be filled with them. And if you think you had a hard time with leadership trying to change the dynamic in an organization, if you lose all the people who are interested and willing to change, it's almost impossible if you continue to use that short-term thinking of, well, I pay you, why would I? I mean, that was the way my father ran. He ran his business, but that was in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And when I started running my company, and first company was in the early 80s, and we were in a very commoditized product. I mean, everybody was selling it. So the only difference we could create was the commitment with which the people put into the product, making sure that what was delivered was correct. It was complete. It was on time. I just talked to my old partner the other day. He said, "Well, we may not have made it to the $1 billion mark, but we created next day delivery before anybody else ever thought of it." you know and so we had next day delivery throughout 3-state area on every product we had, and most people couldn't even process an order that quickly. And the only reason we could do it is because everything was tied to everybody's success. The truck driver's success made the salespeople more successful. The salespeople's success made the pickers and packers in the warehouse more successful. The accounting department made the other people. So everybody's success was tied to something that was measurable, and people then knew exactly how well they were doing. They knew how well they were doing. Their bosses knew how well they were doing, and it was very easy to determine I need to work on something, or as a leader, I need to go figure out what I need to help my people with so that they can learn to be better. What can I help them with? I mean, my phrase is a leadership's position should be, I am the conduit to your success.
Nice.
Show me what you need, and I will provide it, because it's just like in the old days when they said, well, it's much easier to get more business out of an existing customer than it is to have to go find a new customer. And the answer is yes. And it's much easier to get better work, higher performance out of an existing employee than it is to have to go find a new employee and start all over again from scratch. So, the investment of time and money is something that's always there, always required, but is it being done well? I mean, I this hospital I went into, the very first workshop that I went into, the woman didn't tell me this. I'm kind of glad she didn't, but it was this is an 11,000 employee hospital. Okay.
Oh, that's a big one.
That's a big one. Everybody in this workshop, there was like 50 people in this workshop, and I'd never even been in the country before. There were like 50 people in this workshop. It was the leadership of every department in the entire organization, including the president and the chairman of the hospital we're all in this one workshop. And she didn't tell me any of that. She didn't tell me any of that. It's just another workshop and we're working on it. And it was presented like most of my daily six stuff, which is, it is our job to create this connection. It is our job to be honest and open with our people. And this is you were talking about, the West parts, areas in the Middle East, North Africa, these areas are very closed in the way in which they express themselves. Physical expression of joy or happiness is something that is, just the idea is to stay professional, keep your emotions locked in here, and getting them to just do something like smile. We did an hour-long, very fun exercise on learning how to smile at each other. And pretty soon everybody was laughing and having a very good time, but it was very uncomfortable to get started. And once they got started, they realized this is fun and this is good. But you're trying to move somebody into new behavior. All new behavior is uncomfortable. Everything you do, it doesn't make any difference. You first started to walk as a baby. It was not, you kept falling down. If you had quit, you'd still be crawling on the floor today. But you didn't quit. You kept going and it got better and it got easier. And pretty soon you realized this is a much better way to work. This is a much better way to walk around. And it's the same way with the way in which we work with people. That connection, I mean, that woman was really, I never had anybody else do this with me in 20 years of doing this. And having set those people at the very top, at the very front of this line for learning these new techniques of how to engage and connect with people changed the whole level of success, because then they brought in their people and they already knew what they were talking about. They already understood the idea of emotional connection. They already understood the idea of, you were talking about the values of protecting their workers from burnout and being overwhelmed with, especially in hospitals where negativity and death and these other things can overwhelm somebody's psyche, and to the point where they're not able to be productive at all. So how do you get them to back up a little bit? That's not just plunge forward, forget about what happened before, let's just keep rolling forward. That's that it's a great idea. It just doesn't work with a human being. Humans need the time it takes to give them a chance to regenerate a sense of peace and self-confidence. And if all we keep doing is running into a wall all day long, we're going to eventually go, I can't be here anymore.
I wish more leaders could hear your message, man. You're saying what everyone should hear, and yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well,
so,
I will.
Talk to me about sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Talk to me about the Daily Six. What's it all about?
Okay. Well, the Daily Six, just happen to have a copy right here. Daily Six the idea was to create permanent positive change. That's the whole purpose behind the book. Whether it be a company, like I said earlier, we're working on a program for families dealing with addiction, and the idea is how to change the family and how do they relate better and create a permanent positive change. I've got a program for police officers. How do you get police officers to be in a critical situation and not immediately go to shooting? How do you give them some more steps along the way
Interesting.
from stop? If stop and shoot are the only steps you have, then it makes it much harder to do anything else. So let's teach them some steps along the way so that when you finish your work at the end of the day, you will be happy and usefully whole, not demoralized and upset. Because I don't think anybody starts out their day wanting to harm other people, whether it be in the office or whether it be on the street. I think that people want to live a peaceful, joyful life. Just that's not the way in which people teach these days. It's like you said, productivity, profitability, and when you make more profit, we'll all be happy. And the answer is not really. You just don't pay the average workers enough so that they can on Friday afternoon, they can all hop in a private jet and fly to Mexico and lay in a cabana for 2 or 3 days and then come back to work. You don't pay anybody enough for that. What you're paying somebody enough to do is probably make a payment on their car, make a payment on their house, get some groceries, and sit and watch a football game on television.
That's
And
it.
and that's it.
That's it.
So if that's it, then it has to be more than just exchange time for money. So the idea here is what is the simple technique that you can use on a daily basis to help me, not to help somebody else, to help me find a way to stay positive, productive, and interested in the success of others. And that was the thing that was hardest for me to do. I mean, I was interested in my success when I was young. It was, like any other business owner, how much can I make? How much can I get? What's my deal? What am I going to get out of this? I'm putting a lot of time and energy and money in here. What am I getting? And the thing that I learned was the more that I stop focusing on what am I getting and start focusing on what are they getting, I get more. I get more than I ever imagined I would get. And I have positive, energized, connected people working with me,
Mm-hmm.
and yet I'm still making a good living. And I have a much more positive feeling about me. And so that's the purpose. The purpose of the Daily Six is to create permanent positive change through a change of focus. Instead of focusing on what am I getting, as a leader, as an organization, what am I giving to the organization and its people to help make them successful? And when I do that, my success is guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. And so that's what the Daily Six is about. The idea of uh, taking some simple steps on a daily basis. It doesn't take. There's no time associated with it. If you do meditation, it calls for a quiet time. You can do 30 seconds of meditation if you want. It doesn't matter to me. You can do 20 minutes of meditation if you want. But the idea is to take, as I said earlier, I think in the conversation, just take a little bit of a break, reset yourself, and start over again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just a change of perspective. It's a change in which you begin to value the other person. That doesn't take you don't have to go to a gym for an hour and a half at lunchtime to do that, to begin to see value in the finding and seeking and finding value in the other person. And as you do that, their productivity goes up, their mood goes up, their morale goes up, and and then so do their coworkers and their coworkers and their coworkers. And it's the only community building. And in my business, I've always used community as a commonality of focus. We have the same focus. In this department, we have the same focus. So we're building a community with this focus. And it is for the betterment of ourselves and our organization, not just our organization. I will end up being more positive and more energized at the end. The, the idea was just to come up with a way to see things at work differently than give me more money.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the give me more money wasn't working. Just it wasn't working. People were unhappy. I made a lot of money, but I was still wasn't happy. And it wasn't until I learned to be grateful that I became happier. Grateful for my people, grateful for the clients, grateful for the products that I was able to sell, grateful for the drivers that delivered it, the people who packed it, and the people who sold it, and grateful for the people in my lives who helped contribute to my success, and making sure that I told them that they were
That's
they were
important, yeah.
contributing to my success too, rather than just being successful. So, it's just changing your focus from, I used to use the slogan, change your focus, change your mind, change your world. It's just
That's it.
the way in which you feel in here is the world that we see out here. If I'm chaotic in here and I'm fearful in here, then that's the world I'm living in, chaotic and
Exactly.
fearful. So the idea of the Daily Six is to find a way to change what's going on in here, so that when I show up, what I run into is either positive or peaceful and connected, or I can see a way to make it positive, peaceful, and connected.
Yeah, right. I think what you have there is something very important, but to many people might seem counterintuitive. Because when you live in a society which is quite egocentric, in a
Mm.
society that is only about me, 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 and because that's the
I,
mindset shift, the counterintuitive. You said when you stop focusing on what you're getting and you focus on what your employees are getting, that's what everything changed. And I'll draw the analogy with relationships. When you're in a relationship with a partner, if you only focus on what you're getting, and that's a mindset of scarcity and lack, and you don't focus on giving back, and is my partner happy, you're gonna have a dysfunctional relationship. It's not
right,
gonna last. You're
right.
gonna have a divorce. Same goes, you're gonna have a divorce with your
It
a
work.
divorce with your employees
Yes,
at work. So it's
exactly.
counterintuitive, but
But it
yeah,
works.
it works. That's
It does.
it's
And
it's just logical.
it's yeah, and I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I had I've had clients who've hired me, and you get 6 months in and they go, this just isn't working for me. And I look at the people, and the people are very excited and very happy, but this is just, I'm not seeing a big change in my money. I'm not seeing a big change in the way in which the products are working, or the stuff is happening. But the people are happy. But I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on money and return on investment. I'm investing a lot of money in you, and I'm not seeing a lot of return on that investment. And the answer is, it just doesn't come back that fast. I mean, like you were talking about in a relationship, if you've been selfish and self-centered in a relationship
For years.
for a long time, it's going to take a long time for you to rebuild the trust that the changes in you are real. You're not just pretending so you can get things back on track and then you go back to being self-centered again. I've really made this change. I really am behaving this way, and people begin to relax a little bit and then trust you more. Because I guess the purpose behind the Daily Six is to allow you to build trust, whether it be in a personal relationship or in an organizational relationship. And when people trust you, they relax and begin working at capacity, or they begin to relate to you in a more loving and positive way, because with trust, you can relax and be yourself. With trust, you don't have to worry about looking over your shoulder. Am I saying the wrong thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Because you know that through trust is acceptance. Right? With trust is acceptance. And with acceptance is the ability to allow you to do things that you want to try, but that you wouldn't try if you didn't trust. And seen organizations finally get to the concept that if you can build trust at the front line with your people, they will try all sorts of ways to make things work better, faster, and more inexpensively. And the people at the front line know how to do the work better than the people who supervise the work at the front line. So if you're asking the people who supervise the work how to improve things, you're asking the wrong people.
Hmm. I like
So
that. Yeah.
in connecting to the frontline people, but they have to be able to trust you. If they don't trust you, the answers will be whatever they think you want to hear. You know,
Hmm.
they're not going to say this absolutely doesn't work and it's ridiculous and you should throw this away right away. They're not going to say that. They're just not going
You're
to say that.
so right. As you said that, I'm enjoying all these connections at work because I was not in a managerial position not long ago. Now in a managerial position, and I've seen both sides in a short period of time, and it's exactly how you describe it. Exactly how you describe it.
Right. As soon as you're, if you're plating something, you know much better about what it's going to look like when you're finished plating it than you are if you're if you're the chef behind them trying to yell over the shoulder, hey, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's just doesn't, you need the people at the front. You need the drivers. Our company was putting things in a box and delivering them in a truck. And if the driver was disrespectful, if the driver just threw the package into the office, if the driver wasn't considerate or connected to all of the work that we did to get the product to the client. We had a lot of work to get the product from the client's wish into the salesman's head, into the office, all the way through the process, into the truck, and then back to the customer. That took a lot of work. If the person at the end, the person right there connected to the customer, face to face, messes it up, all the other work is wasted. So.
And you've extended your work with the Daily Six to a kid's
Mm.
workbook. Is it? I'm interested to know how you've connected this and how is it working? How you were inspired to do this? So that's a book, yeah.
This is actually, if you see here, this is my wife. My wife wrote this book.
All right.
When about 10 years ago, working in the Middle East in North Africa, my book was translated in Arabic. So when the Daily Six was translated in Arabic, we started thinking about, well, maybe there's other markets, other ways to think about things. And the first thing that popped into my head was, we had a kid who at that point was finishing college. But when he was a young teenager, he had tremendous issues with trying to get along in middle school, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, trying to sort of move from being a child into being a teenager, that space in there. And we wondered if using the Daily Six could help kids change their focus and find ways to break. You were talking about being selfish. I mean, there isn't a much more selfish time frame than 12, 13, 14, 15. I mean, you're not really thinking about how can I help this other person? That really doesn't enter into their head. It's all about your needs. Yeah. No, it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. So you've got a whole lot of disconnected people who are all independent. And nowadays, again, after COVID, even more disconnected and independent. And so Susan took it upon herself, and it took her about, I don't know, it took longer than 10 years to write this book for her.
Wow.
She started fleshing out the ideas, and then this is a full-blown novel. I mean, this is this is 8, 10, 15 characters. All the characters have backstory. Each time the kids are all going through, each kid has a different challenge. It's this sort of magical teacher that everybody circles around. These 6 or 8 kids that are all having different issues, from being shamed by their parents because they're overweight, or having a gay parent that finally realized he was gay and moving out of the house to go with a true partner for life, or a brother who was killed with street violence, to somebody who's just has genetic disorders that cause them to be uncomfortable or embarrassed in situations. And how do all those differing perspectives come together? And they come together by this sort of magical, mystical drama teacher, sort of helping the kids realize that in learning how to settle themselves down and take a look at their problems, rather than simply reacting immediately, but taking that little break between thought and action, and take it. Here's a situation. There were 3 kids trapped underneath they were on a school tour, an empty school. It was just a bunch of them running around trying to figure out where they were going to go to school the next year. They were stuck underneath the stage where they store a lot of equipment. They were under the stage, and the trapdoor dropped down, closed on top. Dead, perfectly black. They're all freaking out. And one of the kids says, hey, what about that quiet time thing? What about that meditation thing that Miss M was talking about? I wonder if that would work, because right now nothing's working. Let's try that. So they all stopped. They started doing some deep breathing. all of a sudden, one of the kids whose foot was stuck, that sort of got them all stuck under the thing in the first, his foot came loose because he relaxed. He stopped pulling and yanking on it. So his foot
Mm.
came loose. And then at being quiet, they could hear somebody up above calling their names because they were being quiet. And they were able to crawl to the space, because then at that point they were noticing the light in the doorway that they could see was far away, but they could see it. They crawled over to the doorway, knocked on the door, and the door opens up and they get out of the space. Because instead of doing what came naturally, they took something that was uncomfortable and practiced it. And then she takes them through the whole thing as far as what's one of the phrases she uses: exercise to exorcise. So you exercise all these demons by exercising every day. And how do we exercise it? And then what happens is each time you gain one of these skill sets, she has a thing called the Moonstone Medallions, which is what is Skylar and the Moonstone Medallions. And the teacher has these little Moonstone Medallions that each time you get willingness or love or forgiveness and you begin practicing correctly, you get one of these Moonstone Medallions. And eventually you collect all 6, you achieve something that the kids call the smooth, and it just makes life smooths out for them. So I couldn't be more proud of Susan for writing this. I mean, it's just, I mean, my book is this, and Susan's book is this.
Right.
I mean, this is a really good book. It's a really helpful instruction book, and it really is effective. But this is not just instructions, but it's also an amazingly interesting and challenging book for helping people figure out a better way to deal with life's challenges.
Yeah. And it's good to hear that, books are being made for kids that actually have deeper meaning and lessons in them other than just pure entertainment. And
Right.
perhaps maybe they won't be able to see the lessons at the time. But let's say if you keep reading your kids books like this, they get instilled in their subconscious in a way that they come out instinctually later in life. So absolutely see the value in it. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Enjoying it. I think the book is actually going to be be great for kids to read it. It's written so that a 7th grade,
simple.
8th grade, but it's also focused on for parents or for guidance counselors or teachers who are trying to help kids. They could almost set this up as a small play with the main character and the teachers going through the exercises of how they learned how to change their behaviors. So I think that it's got a number of different modalities that it could be used in, but I'm really excited about the book. It's just about ready to come in. We're going to sell it through Ingram and Amazon, but right now we have some hard copies here. We're doing some beta test reading right now, so we're excited.
Lovely. All right. So before I ask my last question, I like to ask your very experienced opinion on something. So not very long ago, I had this kind of anxiety walk after one day, and I felt like I just didn't want to be here. Although objectively, with London standards at least, it was a pretty decent job with non-toxic colleagues. But I figured it was just too easy for me. And at the time, I had chosen it to be easy because I wanted to start the podcast. I thought that's what I needed. I needed time and I didn't need stress. But I noticed that lack of challenge, that lack of friendly competition, and that problem solving or customer care element, the lack of it was unbearable. Do you think a common contributor into employee dissatisfaction comes from just being not challenged, from the jobs being just too easy?
Well, it can be. I mean, one of the problems that you have to understand for you is the same problem I have for a number of people who run organizations, is that you're comparing your issues with everybody else's issues. And probably 99% of the people who are out there are perfectly happy with easier jobs. Okay. It's the people who are thinking, I want my own place, or I'd like to challenge and whip this place into a frenzy. The people who they think differently. I mean, you think differently than the majority of the people who are out there working. Um,
Mm.
and so you want this challenge. Many people are very happy with going along, but they don't feel good about going along. They don't feel connected or engaged, but they don't necessarily want a more complex job. They just like to be more appreciated for the job that they do. With you or with me or with Susan or all three of my kids have their own businesses. Um, with all three of them, the idea was that there was a level to which they aspired to do more, to be more complicated, to be more uh, interesting.
Hmm.
And I think that if all you wanted was more interesting, you would have just made things different at work. But you broke out into a podcast. So not only is this more interesting, it's a completely new set of rules and ways in which you work. This is not the same work as you do at the restaurant.
No, absolutely
It's,
not.
it's certainly not the same kind of work you do at the restaurant. So it's a matter of you had a you had a series of desires that weren't being satisfied at the restaurant. All right. So you created this whole other situation where you were running this podcast. Um, now, I think what happens then is you become comfortable in your podcast. So all of a sudden, everything seems easier. Work seems easier. Podcast seems easier. Life may seem easier now. And
Hmm.
sometimes we mistaken easy for boring. It's easy is not
Right.
always boring. We can take easy and use it as an opportunity to learn new behaviors, learn new techniques, learn new cooking techniques, learn new recipe techniques, learn new. Um, I mean, there's a bit. I'm not sure of the level of the restaurant, but a lot of times it's learning the process of getting the food from in to out more quickly. How do we do that more effectively without
Yeah,
making
yeah.
mistakes? And there's always plenty that we can do if we're in a situation where we're given the opportunity to be a leader. There's always something we can do to improve the process, um, rather than make it more complicated. We could just make it more effective. Um,
Hmm.
how can you? I mean, what I would do is I would probably begin to challenge you with questions like, "Well, how do you think you could raise the satisfaction rate of your customers so that they would bring a new customer back next week?
Hmm.
How could you do
I
that?
see.
What would make that connection with that customer? How could you do that? Rather than just a better way to do what you're doing, you have this time, you have this creativity, and you have this desire to do it. Why not think of some ways that if you were a customer, why not start asking customers about what brings you in here? What would bring you back more quickly, more often? What would bring your
Mm.
friends in here more quickly, more often? Um, and
This
that
is
would,
exactly the same problem as before. It was all about what am I getting, not what others are getting. Again, it was like, why is it easy for me, and
right.
why is it? Again, I could see this from so many different perspectives. Now that you mention it, that it was gonna make it more fun. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And you have
absolutely.
to look at, what can I do for them to change the way they think about what we do?
Yes.
How can I change their perspective to make what I do more exciting, more fulfilling, these kinds of things. But it almost always has to be the focus has to be this way first and then this way
Yes.
versus the way we all learned, which is make sure you take care of yourself first and then worry about those other people. Well, that's fine if you're drowning. Make sure that you're safe and then bring somebody else in. But if you're working, you want to make sure that the boat is healthy. The whole place
Yeah.
is healthy. And then you can guide and direct and do what you want to do because you don't have to worry about the boat anymore, because the people are taking care of all the leaks and holes. It's moving forward at the way you want it. So now you can start thinking about, well, how could I make what you do better? How could I make what you do easier and make it taste better, make it work faster? What can I do that way? And the more you do that, the more you'll begin to get satisfied about how exciting it is to see
Of
other
course.
people succeed. That's really when the changes really occur is when your excitement about their success is every bit as exciting as you getting excited about your own success.
You certainly gave me something to ponder on now. Yeah. All right, John. Last question.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I'd like to be remembered as a person who had a lot of flaws, but tried to overcome them and do better for others and for himself. That's probably about it. Just, I was here and now I'm here, and I've had struggled my whole life with different things, ego and all sorts of things. And it's very hard to let those go and set those down. And start being comfortable in my own skin. So, I was a person who was very self-centered, and I learned through a lot of pain that that's not the right path. I found a new path, and I'm very grateful to be on it. And now I think I'd like to be remembered, I guess, just as a person who's encouraging others to find a way to create positive change without having to get what I call a gift of devastation. That's one of those heart attacks that causes you to go on a low-fat diet. You don't have to have a heart attack to go on a low-fat diet. So, for me, it was losing a business, and I didn't have to lose the business, but it put me on a new path. So, I guess that's a very long answer for what I guess would be a short.
That's all
A
right.
short. The idea would just be
That's all right.
he wanted to help people feel better about themselves.
I like that. Beautiful. John, thank you so much for the conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm very grateful for you to have me on the show. Thank you very, very much.